need to know.
I'm not going to lie. Y'all
all
all sound like aliens right now. And I have no idea what you're saying. It sounds like T-Pain on the other end.
You know what?
We're auto-tuned. We're auto-tuned right now.
It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bourbon with Friends. Myself, Adrian, and Martin are here to talk about whiskeys from around the world and how a bourbon with friends or whiskey with friends can change the world. How are you guys today after your Halloween weekend?
Weekend. Yeah. It was good. You know, we had you were out in the wildernesses doing your thing, and we were just, back here celebrating. We had special guest,
goofing off.
Tater Chad. Shout outs to Tater Chad.
I heard Tater Chad was on, and heard Baba Booey was on, and
it was
Martine was here.
He was here. It was a star-studded little event that we did there, but we had fun. It was a good time, and we had a good week, and that was actually the only time I dressed up. I didn't really do anything too much this week, and kind of kept it low key, man. Just chill. What about you, Adrian?
Yeah. What'd you say?
What about you? You look like you're in a new location.
I am in a different location. I painted a different room and set up my whiskey shelf. So here I am. It might not stay exactly like this. I got a new desk. I got to put together all the things, right? So it's a work in progress.
Did you get it from IKEA?
I didn't, though I should have, because I don't live too terribly far from one. But no, I got it from Amazon.
Like every time I get something from IKEA, I just feel like every time I've ever bought anything from IKEA, there's always at least 3 pieces missing. And and it's going to be like the last 5 fucking things that you get. Like you get to the end, you're like, I'm almost done. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't even put this door on now because there's no latch. They only gave me 3 latches. There's supposed to be 4. So you know what? Shout outs to IKEA for being reliable. Thank you, you Swedish furniture makers, guys. But normally we talk about whiskey on the show. In the name, it's called Bourbon with Friends, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna go out and do something a little different today, guys. We're gonna bring in our friend Krystal, talk a little about music. Something I've been wanting to talk about more on the podcast. So welcome, Krystal. We could talk about music because I love music.
Awesome. Well, bourbon and music, they go together, right?
Goes together. It does.
Yeah. Especially country music.
Especially country music. It gets mentioned every once in a while in country music, whiskey. Just
a few times.
Just a few times. Well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're going to go off on a bang, and I know Adrian we're going to start with the one who leads us here and has more of a conscience than the other 2 individuals on this show. That's going to be Adrian here. She's our mind and our soul, and Martin and I are. I'm not really sure what we are. We're here.
We're here
most of the time. So, Adrian, please guide us in the right direction.
All right. Hi, Krystal. It's nice to meet you for sure.
Do you see how sweet that was? That was so sweet. Take us away, Adrian.
So first, I just want to ask, tell us a little bit about how you got into country music. Like, what's a little bit of your background with that?
Yeah, so I think country music was mostly just kind of in my blood, in my bones, because I heard Alan Jackson. I was like, I'm going to marry that man. And just wanted to listen to country music ever since then. So that's kind of all I've always wanted to be. So, later down the line, I started playing guitar, and in probably high school, I had a guitar teacher who kind of helped get into songwriting. And then, my practical side kicked in, and I went to college for music, but for music therapy. And I did that for a little bit, but I still just wanted to. Yeah, so I just wanted to move to Nashville. So me and my husband, we got engaged, and I was like, hey, you wanna move to a different state now? So
Gotta take the chance.
Who doesn't want to move to Nashville?
Yeah.
Right. Well, we were already long distance. Like we were from the same hometown, but we were living like 4 hours apart. So one of us was going to have to move either way. And I was like, all right, let's make it happen. And yeah, I took a job that I wound up hating and kind of knew I was going to hate it, but I was like, at least it'll get me there. Because, we were broke college students and moving is expensive.
Yeah.
And
gotta pay the bills.
Yeah. And then, right. And he didn't have a job, and he hadn't landed a job yet. He didn't actually get a job or an offer until we were already like house shopping. And we were like trying to find a place to rent. And he was like, I hope I can afford rent because I don't got a job yet. And it was a lot. We were staying at a really sketchy Days Inn. Pretty sure there was like a little homeless guy camped outside of our room, and it was good.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a non-sketchy Days Inn, and I can't really think of many. So I'm trying to think if there is such a thing as a non-sketchy one that I've been to, at least. No,
I stayed in Frankfurt, and it's in Frankfurt, Kentucky, and it's actually not too bad. They remodeled it.
Frankfurt's nice though, so that's probably why. Frankfurt's a nice area. So
Bougie Days Inn.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I live up near like Chicago, so none of them are that great. But so I'm gonna admit something, Krystal. I'm not well versed in country music. These guys, I know. But I will say, if you ask me 10 years, if I'm getting into some, I think what I found is my way into it is more through like indie folk, things like that. Like I've been a big fan of people like Zach Bryan, Gregory Alan Isaacoff. So people who kind of like blur that line of country and folk, where they're not one way or the other, but I'm starting to warm up to a lot of it. So I'll get there eventually. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have thought that I'd like something like that. So
country's changed a lot, and I feel like there is something for everybody now, because there's pop country, hip hop country, there's folk country, blues country. It's all over the board.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, is through all that, considering what modern country is now, and kind of all the changes and stuff, and there's obviously through lines and there's classic tropes of country music that you have. Has there always been a sound in your head what you wanted to sound like, or has it kind of just evolved along with how the genre has evolved?
I would say, I'm drawn and write kind of the styles that I like. But especially early on when you start writing, it just kind of whatever comes out, and naturally sort of more like a folky older country sort of came out for me. And so my earlier releases were definitely like more on that honky tonk vibe, very 90s-esque. And then some of my newer stuff is kind of more of a mix of like 90s with classic country, and then also add some like blues and folk and stuff in there. So I would definitely say I definitely, compared to the new sound of country, I definitely tend to be a little bit more old school of a sound. I guess who I resonate with now is like, I do love Ashley McBryde and Lainey Wilson, but also like Chris Stapleton, Eric Church, some of those guys.
Nice.
They're great.
Yeah, they are. I have listened. My sister's obsessed with Chris Stapleton. So like, there's not a family bonfire that that Chris Stapleton, and now and then she also plays Taylor Swift about every 30 seconds. But but no, I was just curious because again, I'm not that well versed. I'm trying to learn a little bit more, and I feel like I tend to gravitate towards the sound that you're describing, is that more classic country folky kind of sound for me. So was just curious about that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The 90s are like my
90s,
favorite time
90s,
of country music. Like, I'm not, I know more country than Martin. It's probably not my first go-to, but you keep talking about 90s country music, and that's where I lived. Like, I like Terry Clark and Martina McBride, and I don't know, I could probably keep going, but it's Brian's turn to talk.
So we've all listened to your new single that's about to come out on the 8th. And when people actually listen to this, it will be the 8th. So the day of your release, this is coming out. It's called Doggone. It's absolutely amazing. To me, at least, Adrian likes it. Martin is indifferent about country music, so
I like it. It's fun.
I like it. It's so great.
You
did not say that in the background.
You have a great voice.
So.
Thank you. Yeah, that was definitely more on the bluesy side for sure. It's definitely like bluesy country, kind of like front porch with the dog and harmonica.
100%. Can you explain a little bit of what happened with your mindset when writing the song to include some of the others, like you have, like Mind your own backyard?
Yeah. So you want to hear about Doggone or Mind Your Own Backyard?
Well, let's talk about what inspired you to write your music, plus everything else that you had out. I mean, you have a bunch of others, right?
Yeah.
You're the Reason I Drink and Red Wine and White Lies.
Mm-hmm.
I like the You're the Reason I Drink, because I mean, that's not like
I can relate to that.
Here, but
that one started. That one started because my husband would come home from work and I would like do something ridiculous. I'm not a very good domestic wife. Like cooking, cleaning's not my thing. I would do something and he would literally come home and he'd be like, Krystal, you're the reason I drink. And he would like sit in his recliner with a beer. And after he said that to me several times, I was like, I'm going to write a song called that. And I'm going to make it about you. And so I wrote it completely as a joke, 100%. And then I sang it out a few times and people were just like, we relate to that. And so it kind of stuck around. Awesome. So that was that one. And Mind Your Own Backyard is also, a marital influence song. I'm kind of mean to my husband in my songwriting. I'm not going to lie. Because Mind Your Own Backyard is about murdering him and burying him in the backyard. So that's my goodbye Earl moment.
You just going to get along just fine.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then Doggone, I wrote, that's the upcoming one. It's I wrote that with my friend Sam Lina, and she came over about a week or two after I'd just gotten a dog. And his name was Bowberry Biscuit, and the whole ride we were really distracted by him because he was cute. And so she just started throwing out like dog references, and the song just kind of spun from there. We've got all the cheesy, like, I've got an itch that needs to be scratched. I'm going to dig a hole. I ain't coming back. No more walk, just all these dog terms. And then we discovered the song wasn't actually about a dog. It was going to be about like a woman feeling like she's got treated like a dog and she was leaving. And, but yeah, that one actually did get inspired by our pupper.
Well, that's awesome. You went from writing about your new puppy to a relationship that went terribly wrong. I mean, you're talking about a skew that's a little bit of a broad range there, but gives you a little bit of insight on how writers work like yourself. It could start one way and then end up in a complete opposite direction really quick.
Yeah. And I love like wordplay or just, clever lyrics and, satire and all of that. So it was just kind of fun to craft it and see where it went. But it really just started with us basically just coming up with any dog phrase that we could come up with because we were distracted.
That's awesome.
We're going to revisit the killing your husband thing.
Okay. Because
I want to know more about that. And like, I mean, I guess is the one thing I will say that since I've been listening to more folky kind of music, what I love is that kind of tongue-in-cheek lyrics where obviously there is a meaning behind it. But it is so open to interpretation. Was there ever a moment where that particular song was open to interpretation where you like from the get-go, did you guys get in an argument before you wrote it? Just wanted to kill him?
No, I think I just like, I don't know. I like edgier topics. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about country music is you could talk about the things that like nobody else wants to talk about. And I grew up on Dixie Chicks and had always really like wanted to write a murder song. Awesome. But I thought of the phrase, I think originally it was like take care of your own backyard. And we wound up Mind Your Own Backyard. Oh, speaking of cute pups.
Yeah.
And so but from the get-go, I knew I wanted that to be a murder song. Cool. And I took it to my friend Stephanie Joyce and we sat down and penned that one. And it's definitely very like kind of like hokey, tongue in cheek, but it's fun. And there's a music video out for that one. Nice. But after I wrote it, I sent it to my dad and he told me if you're going to bury a body, make sure you plant endangered plants on top of it. because then it'll be illegal to dig it up.
And they can't dig it up. Yeah.
Or there's the Ashley McBryde song that one of my favorite lines in that one is, "It ain't murder if I bury you alive."
Damn.
There.
Wow.
Note to self: find endangered plants. I'm making notes over here, Krystal.
Krystal.
Thanks. That's awesome. I really like that. I'm gonna have to go watch this music video because I'm so curious now.
This is great. I went from a federal agent now to a podcaster who's getting information about people killing each other. This is awesome.
This is great.
While holding a very large dog.
Oh, like a baby. Oh my gosh.
He's trying to climb up here on my chair, but it's not going to happen.
Sorry, Arlo. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, bud.
Yeah. So that's the new thing.
Yeah. So on your bio on your website, it says it notes that you like artists such as Alan Jackson, the Dixie Chicks, which we talked about that a little bit, and I completely understand why you like Alan Jackson. I was kind of like I like Trace Adkins, and I love Garth, obviously, but you mentioned a little bit of a bluesy feel to this current song. Mm-hmm. Do you have artists that are from the blues world that give you inspiration that you can name?
Yeah, and I would say most of my like bluesier influences are probably on the country area.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I love Ashley McBryde and when Chris Stapleton does his bluesy stuff. But I also like Stevie Ray Vaughan and some of the classics or Bonnie Raitt.
Yes,
I would say is a big influence. Just that sound. And it's funny because I didn't really listen to anything but country music until a little later in life. But I think in like college was probably the big push of like bro country and like Florida Georgia Line and all that stuff. And I didn't dislike it, but it just wasn't like I didn't feel fulfilled by it musically, I guess. So I kind of started, branching out and finding other music avenues. Sorry, I'm really distracted by the dog. He's really cute. Me
too.
That's okay.
Started branching out and listening to some of the older stuff. Because I probably up until then I was really listening to like whatever was on the radio or like 90s stuff. But then I think at that point I kind of started going backwards and looking more at like older rock or bluesy rock or listening to some pop or listening to a little bit of like folky classic country stuff. So I kind of reverted back during the college years and after that to listening to some of that stuff while country was in like a weird state for a minute.
I'm so glad that you said that because I was just gonna say like right after the 90s, so there was that stretch where country music was just so good in that little span of time, at least for me, which was the 90s, but it seemed like it just was different after that. And I don't know, not sure what changed. It's kind of turned around, and it's like you mentioned Florida Georgia Line and like some of that kind of stuff comes back, like Kane Brown and trying to think of somebody else, but it's kind of started to shift back a little bit, but it kind of went weird there for a little bit.
Yeah. And that's fine. I didn't dislike it, to be honest, but it didn't feel the same as it used to. And I wasn't it wasn't like getting me in my feels. It was more of like, just like a light car jam. And I just kind of, I don't know. I think it had its moment, and I think that did open the door up in the future for the genre blending that's happening now in country music, which is cool. So, it was one of those things that kind of had to happen for those other genres to kind of reach into country music. But yeah, it was weird. And I'm glad that we're kind of reverting back away from that. But, radio goes in phases. It was, it went into that like bro country for a little bit. And then it was like very pop country, like Sam Hunt. And then it went, it's definitely in like this Morgan Wallen phase right now. Like Morgan Wallen and, oh my gosh, like Ernest and some of them.
Ernest
like
and Hardy
yeah. Like I was listening to the highway the other day, and like literally everything had like a trap beat behind it, and was very much their style. And so, yeah, but at least for them, I will say, while that isn't necessarily my style, I will say, like, I do think Hardy and like Ernest and Morgan Wallen are really good songwriters. So the storytelling and the lyrics are a little bit more quality, and a little bit closer to like the country stuff I like. So
Yeah.
I'm not for the beats, but it is what it is.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Is Noah Khan considered that? Because I love him and he's got some vibe of country, sort of, in some of his songs.
He's more on like the folk side.
Pop, more like closer to pop, but he's got some songs. Yeah, like Dial Drunk is probably the closest he gets to like a real country song, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like sitting here like going through like all the like kind of recent artists I have, but I guess off of that is, so you kind of answered one of my questions in a previous one that we talked about. So obviously country is your thing. You grew up on it, and that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you could pick a lineup for a concert for you to be on, so
Okay.
two country artists, could be country folk, could be whatever, and then two other genres of music that you'd want to be on that tour. So it can be anything.
Oh my.
And anybody, it could be anybody, dead, alive, whatever.
Oh, wow.
We'll open it up.
Only two country?
Two country, two other.
I'd say, let's see. I think Ashley McBride, I really like her right now. I think she's kind of underrated. And when you like listen to her albums, she's just got some really good stuff. And she just seems like she'd be a good hang.
Yeah.
Then maybe let's throw in like, I don't know, like Willie Nelson. Just because it's Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
I saw his kid recently. What's his kid's name?
I don't even smoke pot, but I think he's cool as shit. So
yeah, he's super cool.
And okay, non-country, who would I go with? I feel like my answer is going to change once I mull over this a little bit more, but like Tyler Childers came to mind, and he's in that kind of like folk area. And then let's go with
Just gonna say T-Pain.
Pink was popping in my head. Pink.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
She would like she's like does gymnastics and
I was gonna say
and silks,
like a whole show, like a stage show, like the last act.
She can really sing. Like
that is a garment.
Really,
I think I will revisit this concert lineup, but those were what came to my mind.
It kind of sounds like a mini Coachella, so it's just like it's very eclectic. No, I like that. I guess it kind of just gives us a peek into like what else you like, and like what else like, because it's fun to get. I think my favorite shows are that, like, where it's like a couple different kind of genres, and then I get exposed to stuff, and other people get exposed to things. There's bands that I enjoy that are more in the kind of extreme metal things that have been playing like Bonnaroo, and so it's kind of cool to be able to see it like open up to like a wider audience, and that's how I got introduced to a lot of the same type of like country music, because I got to see it live, and I was like, wow, I do like this because I'm dancing to it or I'm singing along to it, and I think that's really cool to hear from an artist point of view who they would take out. So yeah, that was awesome.
There we go.
So this is
answers, but we'll go with it.
We change this up a little bit throughout the show, and we always ask one particular question, and it's always involving a squirrel. The reason for this is Adrian had a squirrel in her backyard on her first episode that was in her window on a tree, annoying her.
It changes every time.
It changes every time.
It's a different story every time, but that's the gist of it.
It's the gist of it. There was a squirrel in her backyard, and it was annoying her.
There. Okay.
Yeah.
It was just staring at her like this, like on its stomach.
Did you shoot it, or what did you do?
I wanted to. Yeah.
I recommended it. She didn't listen.
Yeah. I live in the city, so it's kind of like houses are close, that kind of thing. So.
But we always ask a squirrel question because of this now. And so many episodes, it's continued on.
Yeah.
This is the question that I came up with, and I don't know how it popped into my mind, but if a squirrel was a musician in a band or a singer, what would it play and why? Or sing and why?
I like this question. Good
Good one.
question.
It's a good squirrel question.
I feel like the banjo.
The banjo?
I don't
Because
know
of
why. I just like it feels like
That's what I was thinking.
Appalachia-y mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see them rocking the banjo.
Do they
Okay.
have the squirrels have opposable thumbs?
Yes.
I think so.
I say, yeah, they're perfect.
Okay, there you go.
They do
They can
they're
do that.
gatherers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
I was
sits
waiting
there.
for you to say steel guitar.
Ooh, I do love steel guitar, but I don't know. I don't picture a squirrel playing steel guitar.
Mhm.
They seem like kind of. I mean, they're squirrely, and I feel like
a little
The
nutty.
banjo
Yeah.
would be
kind of
perfect.
squirrely. So
I agree.
Yeah,
That's a good answer.
That's so
I like
funny.
that's good. I
Okay,
also
so
like
there's
that
one other
banjo behind your
question.
shoulder. By the way, I think that's.
Yeah.
I kind of want to learn
I
to
know.
play the banjo.
I've been
No, you don't.
eyeballing
Stop
the
lying.
instruments back
I
there
do.
too.
I play guitar.
I don't actually play most of this.
Oh.
They're just decoration. I
I
wish
was
I
going
could.
to say a
Well,
They're
mandolin, a
beautiful.
fiddle, and a banjo.
Yeah. One day I'll learn. That's the goal. But right
Sounds
now,
good.
You can
I
play
keep saying that, and then life keeps happening, and there's
Mm.
just not enough hours in the day.
Yes.
Amen, girl. So we like to ask one other question, and it's around whiskey, obviously, I guess. We like to ask people what their favorite memory is associated with whiskey. Now, it could be from when you were a kid, and it's like an adult who had a certain kind of whiskey they liked, or anything that or spirit. I guess if there's a different spirit that you prefer that you have a memory associated with, you could do that as well.
Okay. Well, while I'm mulling on this, I have to wrap myself out because y'all know Taylor Hughes, right?
Yeah.
Have y'all interviewed her before? So
No.
she's from Lexington, Kentucky, and I think that's how I found out about y'all's podcast. But so she has quite the bourbon collection at her house. And I went over to her house one day for like a girls afternoon. It was like a Sunday afternoon at like noon. It was super early. But for some reason we were drinking tequila.
Mm.
And I'm not sure why we were drinking tequila.
Okay.
Then I remembered why I started drinking whiskey was because I can't handle tequila. But yeah, so I reverted back to like my college days when I'd never drank. And I mean, this was like 6-7 months ago. Like this wasn't that long ago. I'm like 10 years out of college. We're past all that. But I definitely, I definitely threw up on a table at a nice restaurant.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, and I got home and I was like, hey, honey, can you move the car? And he was like, you didn't drive, did you? And I was like, no. And he was like, where's the car? And I was like, don't worry about it. And then I fell asleep. And he woke me up with like hash browns and bacon and pancakes and was like, hey, honey, I really need to know where the car is. I was like, oh, it's a Taylor's house. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I had no recollection of saying any of this stuff. I'm actually really appalled that I just told you guys the story. I don't think I've actually talked about it on publicly, but it's definitely a joke with her.
Vulnerability at its finest.
Yeah.
Actually, a good whiskey memory is in Key West. I think it was Woodford I was drinking, but they make their drinks really strong in Key West, and I didn't realize how strong they were. So like 3 drinks in, I was spilling the whiskey out the side of my glass, and it was landing in my cowboy boots. It inspired a song called "Booze in My Boots."
I was about to say that's the lyric right there.
Yeah. I said "Booze in My Boots," and my friend was sober enough to write it down and reminded me, and so we wrote a song about sneaking in alcohol places by putting the flask in your boot. So that's how the song was inspired, though, was because I was literally sloshing whiskey into the boot. And no, I did not drink it afterwards because that's gross. I know people do boot shots, and that's no.
Yeah, that's I think that's like the Australians
somebody
who do that
who's
or
done
something like that.
You know somebody who's done that? Have you done it?
Yep.
I'm judging you.
You have?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Yes.
We should unpack this.
No, we're not going to. It's fine.
To make it worse, I did sing that song somewhere, and somebody was telling me a story about in college, they had a friend who had a prosthetic leg, and they used to pass the leg around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, that is like terrible and great all at the same time.
Yeah.
I can say it's cleaner than a boot.
It probably would be.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, because you can like wipe it out. It's not.
Yeah, you can wipe it down.
I've had a couple friends who have prosthetics, and we've drank out of their prosthetics before.
Yeah, you have like a dry wipe leg. It usually works out pretty good, like a chair.
Stop it. We were all in the military.
They not kiss you if you do that.
I smell a new song.
But speaking of, whiskey, I do, and bourbon, I love Whiskey Thief is one place I play in Kentucky fairly often. Nice. And love those guys, love their bourbon, but also just they're good people. And I try to come back to that area pretty often to play. Yeah. And there's also dogs usually running around, which makes it even better.
Yes.
It's awesome. Better. They always make things better.
Well, Martin, I think it's that time of night where you got to thank one person or one company, I should say.
I got a job. Krystal, I have a job. It's my only job really here. So basically, this is what I do is I like to thank our sponsor. So we do want to thank our sponsor, the great 10th Mountain Whiskey. You guys can find them on all social media platforms as well as their website, which is 10thwhiskey.com. And guess what? If you go there and hit in BWF, it's going to be on the bottom of the screen right here, BWF 15. Get you 15% off on 10th Mountain Whiskey. So go on there and get yourself something cool, a hat, shirt, anything. Whatever you want. It's your choice. It's your life. You can get them in 41 different states through online distribution, as well as 28 states throughout the country on regular retail distribution. Again, 10thwhiskey.com. Go there, ask some questions. But again, I just want to thank 10th Mountain Whiskey for being our sponsor on the podcast.
Well, Krystal, thank you again for joining us. And this was awesome.
This was a blast.
Yeah.
Y'all got to see my spazzy side.
I know.
Krystal's song comes out November 8th, right?
November 8th, Doggone.
You can go and pre-save it, I believe, probably on Apple Music or Spotify, any of those platforms. So you guys should all go out and do that.
And then stream on repeat when it comes out.
There we go. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for joining. And remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world, y'all. Have a great day or night wherever you're at. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at BWF Podcast. Thanks for listening.